Everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles, and today I'm speaking with Jake, a fellow basketball card YouTuber and collector. How you doing, Jake?
Good, Josh. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm good. So today we're going to be talking about some random topics, including what it's like to have a YouTube channel as a card collector in this world. We'll talk about Gary V of all things. I know we're both pretty passionate about that. So
Yeah,
Jake, why don't you start us off? Tell us about yourself and your background in the hobby.
sure. Yeah, so I really got started, and I think I kind of have a similar story to a lot of guys on here, where I started collecting back when I was a kid and got back into it. So I really started off my older brother, collected baseball and football, and he would pick a rookie every single year and collect all their rookie cards. And it's a little bit easier than it is now, collecting Napoleon Kaufman back in the '90s. So I saw him doing it, and then in '95, actually. There was a Olympia Sports that opened up down the street from where my grandparents were, and I was hanging out with them for the summer. And every time you went in there, you'd get a free pack of NBA hoops. So I went in there every single day, like religiously, and got a pack a day, and would bust through those and saw a ton of cool little subsets, and got a couple rookies, Damon Stoudemire, some of the guys from '95. Nothing too valuable, but I loved it, and that just got me hooked. And then my brothers were getting those packs, and a couple other kids in the neighborhood. So we all started trading the cards back and forth. And then I said, oh, well, this basketball stuff is pretty cool. So then, got back home, and, kind of the rest is history. And then got out of it around high school. I started getting really heavy into basketball, AAU, high school team. So that kind of consumed my world. And then trying to talk to girls. So that kind of consumed my time. I did a little bit of collecting here and there when I got back from the summers from college and stuff like that, but really kind of fell out of it until my parents were moving out of their house a couple of years ago and said, "Hey, you got to get all this junk out of here." So I said, "Okay, maybe I'll just throw it all up on eBay and see what happens." And I started looking through some of the stuff and reliving all the memories, and nostalgia started just flowing back. And I said, "Yeah, maybe I'm gonna get the itch again." So then I started getting some of my cards recased and put into better ways of keeping them safe. And then I started getting into packs again, and then the YouTube channel started, and now I'm an addict again.
How long have you been doing the YouTube channel?
It's been a little bit less than a year. So I started. It was sometime over the summer, I think, that I had my first episode come out.
So what's the main content for your channel?
Yeah, so mostly what I do is I bust open old '90s packs and talk about kind of the glory days. '90s is really the stuff that I love, and that's the stuff that I grew up on, and that's the stuff that I happen to know a ton about. So it seems like all that memory just stuck in there and didn't go anywhere over those years. So I pick a pack each week, and I go through it, and hopefully I get some fire, and then I kind of show off some PC along the way. So if we don't pull a ruby, maybe I'll show a ruby if I have one, that type of stuff. So all that cool thing.
So what kind of stuff do you collect for yourself now?
Yeah, so now I collect Penny. That's my PC. It has been since the day I started. Really, yep, Penny strong. Um, and I like Iverson and KG. Those are the other two kind of side guys. But if I'm gonna go out and seek a card, it's gonna be a Penny card for sure. I hang on to some of my other stuff that I like Vince Carter, but I don't buy new Vince Carter by any means.
So
It's Penny.
was Penny your favorite as a kid? What's the reason for that?
Yeah, yeah, so kind of funny story behind that. So growing up, my brother was a Bulls fan. The Bulls were killing it in the '90s, and I would watch the games. And I noticed, there's another guy outside of this number 23 that seems kind of good who wears 33. And I was like, oh, he seems good, but I don't want to root for the same team as my brother. So one week we're watching the game. I said, okay, I like number 33 on your team. And then a week later, I'm watching a game, and there's a team wearing blue. And I was like, there's this guy that looks like number 33 on your team, but he's wearing a different jersey. I don't know what's going on here. But I think I like him because he's good too. And then I saw the Bulls and the Magic play against each other. And I was, this was before I started collecting cards, so I didn't know anything about the names. And I see these two guys that I thought looked similar playing against each other. And I was very confused. And then my dad explained to me, that's Scottie Pippen, that's Anthony Hardaway. And I said, well, I'm definitely going to root against my brother. So I'm picking Penny and stuck with it. So.
Did you fall into like the trap of the hype of Penny Hardaway at the time? Because he was almost as marketed as Michael Jordan at that time.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We would go back and forth about who was the better player, and I was 100% Penny is definitely better than Jordan. No question about it. So yeah.
That
And
didn't
I wanted all the shoes, everything.
that didn't work out in the end.
I know, it's all right.
So
I
why don't
still
you?
say if he was healthy, he would be better.
Yeah, sure. So why don't you just start showing some stuff off? What do you got? What kind of cards
All
you got
right.
for us?
Yeah, so really the stuff that I wanted to get when I was younger was all of his rookies. So when I was real young, my dad got me the finest. I don't know if you can see that pretty well, but the finest rookie, and he got it in a PSA 9 slab, and this was pretty early on when grading started. So I love that. And then years later, I said, well, if I'm going to get the refractor, I got to get it to match. So I got the PSA 9 refractor.
Nice.
And I'm typically not a big guy on graded stuff. I like a lot of my stuff raw, but I figured if I'm gonna get one, I want twins, so I had to get those to match. Um, so that was really the holy grail for me for a long time. Was this guy, and now I've got a copy of every single one of his rookies. So that was pretty sweet. I really try to stick to his Magic days. Um, those were the fond memories for me, but I do have a couple of his Suns cards. Um, that are still pretty fond memories for me.
I've recently started selling my son stuff. Like I,
Did you?
because I started with only pinstripe uh,
Yeah.
cards, and then I sort of like hit a wall of running out of stuff to find, and I started buying Suns, and then I've had it for a while, and I just it
Yeah.
doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing with me, because I think we all hit a wall at some point, right? You got to rep the
It's
Suns.
weird, right? Like
But
I'm a Suns fan, but I don't like his Sun stuff. It's just weird.
I really only like the first year Suns. So that jersey I love
Yeah,
that Charles Barkley jersey.
yeah,
The Steve Nash jersey didn't really do it for me. So when I get one of his cards in that jersey, I'll hang on to it, but I'm not going and geeking out, dropping crazy money on those. Um, but it was interesting because when I got into collecting, I was like, I'm just going to do the Magic stuff. But um, there's so much of it out there that I think I can kind of chew away at that for a while. But sometimes I'm not able to find something to wet my whistle if I'm, really kind of got the itch. So I'll dabble with the Suns if I have to.
yeah. So what else? What else you got?
Well, talking about the Suns, when I was in high school, my brother got me. He was like, "You need to have an autographed penny card," and I said, "You're right, I do, but help me find one because there weren't the autographics. Getting a jersey autographed one from '97 wasn't attainable for me. So he said, "Well, I'll try to find something for you." So he picked this one up for me,
Oh yeah,
2000 2001 jersey auto, so pretty affordable, but with the two colors in there. I love that. And it's not a ton of orange, but just enough. And that got me started with penny autos. So I still don't have the '97 jersey. I'm still looking to get that. But the funny thing with me is I'll try to elongate how long I'm going to be collecting
yeah,
before I really hit an entire wall. Um, and I do that by just trying to kind of be a bargain hunter. I'm not going to beat anybody up on prices. If you and I, like, I know we completed a couple deals. If we come to a fair deal on a card that I want, I'm going to spend the money that it's worth. But if I'm going on eBay and just some random guy, I'll see if I can get it for a little bit under market if I can, and if I can't, then I let it walk,
yeah.
unless it's something I really want. So
That's actually a great point that I haven't discussed yet, but like a lot of us feel like we're in this kind of rush or like this race
yeah,
to get certain cards within our PC, and I'm super guilty of this. I know, but you're right. Like if we try to span it out more over like a longer period of time, we'd probably be more successful, financially.
yeah, and I always say to my friends that when they're picking up new cards or players or whatever, I say I collect stuff that if it's worth zero at the end of the day, I'm still gonna be happy with it. I want things that I still want, because at the end of the day, I think collecting inherently shouldn't be about the monetary gain, because I think that's a different ball game altogether. Collecting for me is really for the passion, and I've had some people that come to me and say, "Hey, what about Luca? Should I get some Luca stuff?" I said, "If Luca goes and breaks his ankle, and all of his stuff is worth jack, are you going to be happy with it?" And they're like, "Well, no, not really. I like it because it's valuable." Like, then don't collect it.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen with these athletes. If you want to just get a quick flip, that's a whole different ball game, and I think we've all done that at times. Um, but I'm in it for the long haul. That's for sure.
So tell me about the channel. Tell me about maybe like the good things about it and maybe the bad.
Yeah. So I think the good stuff is it gives me an excuse to bust open '90s. So if my wife's like, "Hey, what are you doing with all these packs?" I'm like, "Well, it's for the channel. You can't get mad about that."
Yeah.
Um, but I think it also kind of it enables me. So it's kind of a double edged sword there. But I think the other thing is, and I know you've probably seen the same thing. It's slow moving. So if we want to get to like a Gary V level,
Yeah.
it's going to take a while, or it's going to take a really lucky break, and maybe you and me collaborating, or getting somebody like that is that break for us. But you never know. It's a next piece of content, right? Just keep putting it out there.
How often are you
Um,
putting out content?
so I do one video a week, and then occasionally I'll do a second video.
Yeah.
But I think one video is enough for me right now. It's probably about all that I can handle. Because you got work and family and everything else going on. So uh, sometimes just one video a week is challenging.
Yeah. The consistency is the hardest part because you just like you put in a lot of time to one video and then all of a sudden it's a week later and you're like, ah,
Yep,
it's
here
like
we go again.
I wish I could have a week off.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's nice to be able to schedule your content and get it pushed out there. If I schedule something to go this Wednesday, I could have recorded it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I like to stay current if I can. So getting something consistent can be a challenge, definitely.
Have you had anybody reach out to you with like positive or negative feedback?
Yeah, so I've been lucky, and so far all pretty positive. Occasionally I'll get something negative because I always talk about the fire we can pull, right? What's the craziest thing we can get? The 97 ruby star ruby. But I'm only busting open 3 or 4 packs. So people be like, "You really expect to get a star ruby in 3 or 4 packs?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I don't expect to, but we could. You never know what's going to be in that pack." So, some people think that my expectations are unrealistic. I have had some people that have accused me of kind of doctoring the packs, because I've gotten really, really good luck on a lot of the packs, and I've busted things and pulled things that are just not in the odds. And that's kind of the beauty of the pack. Sometimes is you don't know what you're going to get, and sometimes you might get hosed, and sometimes you might get a huge win. But I definitely don't doctor any packs. Whatever I pull is what I pull, and I try to make sure that I delineate. Here's what's pack pulled, and here's what's PC.
So are you buying loose packs on eBay?
Some of them I get on eBay, some of them are on Facebook. There's some people that I've kind of built a relationship with that will say, "Hey, I got something in. I found something. Do you want this?" But then sometimes I'll also just get a box, and I'll just kind of go through that slowly and just do a few packs at a time. I have done full box breaks on my channel, but it's a long day busting a whole box. I've found I like
Uh,
to keep it manageable.
what's the craziest pull you've had on your channel?
So the craziest pull was actually my first video,
Yeah, of course.
which yeah, it's like
It's all
get it right out
downhill.
of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I pulled, and I actually have it here. Is the Jordan Round Ball Royalty
Oh, nice.
Refractor?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So a nice $300 pull. Now the interesting thing with this is, I decided I was just going to open 2 or 3 packs because I see these box breaks all the time, and people are busting through countless packs, and it just gets boring for me to watch. So I wanted to make something that was interesting for viewers, and that they could actually tune in and actually watch the full thing, and get what they want and get out. So I decided I was just going to do like 2 or 3 packs on the channel, and then I would do the rest of them off camera, and then come back and show what I pulled. And inevitably, this was in the last pack, so I didn't get that on camera. So this is one of those ones that people are like, "Yeah, sure, you pulled that." So I've tried playing with different ways that if I have more than 2 or 3 packs, how do I get all of the good on the channel,
Yeah.
and kind of get rid of all the other stuff. So this wasn't on camera, but it was definitely the first box break. Doesn't get too much better than that.
So as a fellow YouTuber, what's your goal for your content?
Yeah, when I started it out, the my whole dream was, I got back into collecting, a year and a half ago, and I realized that some of it was like riding a bike, and some of it had changed immensely. Um, so I was trying very hard to kind of get back up to speed. What's worth a bunch? What are people after? What players are still relevant?
Yeah.
What players aren't relevant anymore? And part of what I want to do on the channel is create that education. So if somebody's getting back into the hobby, they've been out of it for 20 plus years, or if somebody is younger, if a 15-year-old wants to get into card collecting, it's like, what is all this 90s stuff? I know about the prism, and I know about the optic. What's this tops? I wanted to kind of create that meeting of in the middle, that people could come figure out if I'm going to buy a pack of 97, 98 Stadium Club, what should I get, and what's actually valuable, and what's actually worth pulling.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff, it goes for so much. If you're getting a pack of 97, 98 metal, everybody's trying to get a PMG, you're going to drop $50 for a pack.
Yeah.
But your best card might be a Terrell Brandon base. So do you really want to drop $50 on that? Now, if you pull the Terrell Brandon PMG green, you're winning, but you never know.
So what's like the future of the hobby in your opinion?
That's a great question. I think for are we thinking 90s or are we thinking everything?
Both separate questions.
Okay, yeah. So I think for the 90s, we're kind of in the sweet spot right now, kind of like the vintage stuff.
Yeah.
You see this stuff with the 50s and the 60s, and those people, like our parents' age, some of them are retiring and some of them have a bunch of discretionary income. And I think that market for the vintage has, maybe another 20 or 30 years before you start to see a little bit of a drop on the interest. And some of us will pick up the interest in it. But I think for the 90s, we're in that golden era right now that we probably have a good 50-year run left in that stuff continuing to be sought after.
Yeah.
And potentially the values could continue going up. I mean, they're skyrocketing right now. And I think markets typically are a little bit more like a pendulum, so they'll swing back and forth. So it's not going to stay bullish forever. But I think that we've got a good run, I think, still in front of us. And then I think the Prism stuff and Panini in general. I know a lot of people like the dog Panini, and I'm not the biggest fan of Panini, but I think the thing that they do very well is they have high quality cards produced.
Yep.
When you're pulling a card and getting it graded and you're expecting it to gem, that says a lot about the card making. When I was pulling stuff in 96 and 95 from Skybox or Tops or Upper Deck, if I get a 9, I'm like, this thing is in great shape. And if I get a 9.5, you got to be kidding me. But 8s and 8.5s weren't uncommon at that point. So I think that there's a lot to be said for the quality of cards. I don't like seeing how volatile the stuff is. It's, if I buy Prism, I want to sell that immediately to get my money back. But if you're collecting it and you're in it for the long haul, you're not worried about getting your money back out of it.
Yeah. I just opened a
So
box of Optic. That stuff is nice. Like the card
it
stock
is.
is really thick, and it's just like a really nice set. I mean,
Yeah.
it's similar to Prism in the quality, the
Yep.
card stock. But it's like a third of the price, and in my opinion, it looks better than Prism.
Yeah, I think Optic is hugely underrated. And I picked up, I think when year that I first got back into collecting, I picked up, some hangers at Target, and I pulled the Thonmaker Purple Auto, and I was like, this is a gorgeous card. And I still have it. It's probably not going to be worth a ton, but yeah, they're hugely underrated in my opinion.
Yeah, so it's like if you're in the modern stuff, I think you made the point earlier, but don't worry about making money in something within modern long term. Just try to find like your niche within it that you like, and there's a
Right.
lot of like cheaper options like Revolution Optic. I've talked about that a lot. There's
Yep.
cheaper options that are just as fun as the Prism stuff, because I think
Definitely.
everyone that's buying Prism right now is just flipping it. Nobody's
Yeah.
holding it longer than a year at this point.
Yep. 100%. And if you do hold it longer than a year, you usually get hosed. Um, I know I did that with some stuff. I had a couple of Donovan Mitchells, and I was like, yeah, I'll wait and see if he wins the Rookie of the Year, and knowing that he wasn't going to beat out Ben Simmons, in all honesty. And it's almost like it has a radioactive half life on it. The day that you pull it, it's the most valuable it's going to be, and it's just going to drop from there.
It's like a car.
Yeah, it's exactly like a car.
And then
It's a great
also,
analogy.
I want to warn people about people doing Doncic right now. When Zion Williamson comes into the league, like
Yep.
his stuff is gonna just go way down. People are
Yeah.
just gonna
Well, and
lose interest.
exactly. And I mean, I think that's the key with any rookie class is once that next class hits, those guys from the year before, Laurie Markin, I'm probably saying his name wrong, was a pretty sought after player last year. This year, probably couldn't sell his card for $1 or $2 if it's a base, Um, and it's the same thing every year. You might have one or two guys that'll stay relevant, but yeah, I don't know if you're a Duke fan, um, but I am. And watching Zion Williamson, Cam Reddish, RJ Barrett, those guys are phenomenal. And there's other guys outside of Duke, uh, Little from UNC. There's a bunch of guys that are coming up in this next class that are going to be phenomenal players. and the collecting is going to go crazy for that stuff. It's going to just
Yeah.
shift.
And if you like collecting those young guys in their rookie year, just find the cheaper stuff that you're not worried about losing money, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because I mean, I think as a Suns fan, you probably remember when Dražen Bender came into the league, and his stuff was pretty valuable, and he didn't pan out, and now his stuff's not. But if you were going to be collecting somebody like Tim Hardaway Jr., you could have gotten all of his rookies for pretty cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, and also just like assume it's gonna go to zero.
Right.
And are you
Yep.
gonna be
That's
happy with it? Collect what you like, right? Come on.
exactly 100%. Collect what you like. Don't worry about the value.
Um, so let's move on to Gary V. Just tell people like about Gary V and also his
Yeah.
connection to the hobby.
Yeah, so Gary V, and I'll kind of give my history with Gary V. So I got hooked. I saw this video that he had talking about kind of secondary education for entrepreneurship, and he had a lot of values that I definitely agreed with. Having just gotten out of college when I had seen that, I was not too fond of all the debt that I had, so he was speaking right into something that I definitely believed in. And I think everybody, especially when you're in collecting, has a little bit of a entrepreneurial nature to them.
Yeah.
So that while I'm not an entrepreneur by any means, I'm definitely a corporate guy. I still can understand that, and I have a bunch of friends who are entrepreneurs that I can kind of help them out when I get some advice from Gary. Um, so I started consuming his content after I saw that, and then I saw that he had this wine show from a while ago, and that's really where he got started in YouTube, is Wine Library TV. And around that same time, I was starting to get interested in wine. I don't know if you can see, but I've got some old wine bottles back there. So I'm a wino, and I kind of started learning about wine from Gary Vee, and I was like, this guy's really entertaining. So then, getting all of his other content, and then finding out that he really got started in his entrepreneurial venture, selling baseball cards and going to shows as like a 10-year-old kid, and flipping stuff. And then I was like, okay, so this guy is, we're kindred spirits here. So, and then it was really interesting because I think it was 4 or 5 months ago, he had a couple of posts on Twitter about getting back into collecting, and I personally got extremely excited because I'm like, hey, if we're getting a mainstream guy that's back into collecting,
Yep.
this is going to be huge for all of us. And started collecting the Barkley rookies from Fleer, and I haven't seen as much stuff from him recently, but every so often he'll kind of pop back in, and I'm gonna, hopefully somebody might be able to help me get him on the channel and bust open some packs, because I think that'd be a lot of fun for everybody.
Yeah, I think I heard a rumor that he's going to national, or he on video said he was going to be there. It might have just been
Hmm.
like a whim of the moment kind of thing, but
Maybe.
that would be huge, right?
That'd be crazy. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it out this year, but 2020 I'll definitely be in AC, and if I have any way to get him there,
Yeah,
if I've been able to link up.
I'm trying to like explain the pull that he has in the
Yeah.
the internet community amongst like the collectors. He's not super well known in the collecting community, but
Right.
he has such a pull that if he ever did really get into the hobby, like we could see a huge boost in
Oh,
interest in the hobby.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that it just takes one collector to kind of bring it back in vogue, because you probably remember how huge collecting was in the 90s, and it kind of took a dip, uh, you know, but it could definitely get back to being just as cool. It's cool for us.
yeah.
So
There's
a
a
guy like
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just saying a guy like Gary Vee can definitely kind of bring a lot of mainstream people back in.
There's a similar parallel in the high end watch world. People that
Yep.
collect watches, they did an interview with John Mayer a few years ago, and
Hmm.
it was like, oh wow, John Mayer collects watches. Like this is so cool. And now all of a sudden, watches have just like exploded from there.
Yep.
Tons of celebrities collect them. There's lots of people that are jumping into it. So I feel like Gary Vee is our John Mayer.
Yeah, and it's exciting because I heard a rumor that Cat Carl Anthony Towns collects basketball cards.
Oh, nice.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of celebrities. I was trying to do some research on celebrities that collect basketball cards, and I think some of us are kind of not ashamed, but some of us kind of keep it quiet
Yeah,
because if you go to the office, not everybody understands why do you like all this cardboard stuff. Um, but I think there's probably a lot of really cool people out there in pop culture that collect that we just don't know about yet.
I think that's a big part of the channel for me, and I can't speak for you, but is kind of showing the public like that it can be fun and it can be interesting,
Yeah,
and it's not just throwing all your money away in some cases. So
right.
there's different avenues and different ways to get into the hobby, and there's lots of fun niches within the hobby that you can jump into.
100%. And I mean, since doing my channel, I've had a lot of friends and friends of friends that have reached out to me and said, "Hey, I didn't know that you were into this stuff. Explain it to me." And there was a friend of mine who works for a highly secure government agency that was like, "Explain this whole collecting thing to me." And somebody who's in uh, you know security at that level, caring, I think is just a matter of being exposed to it because it's a really cool hobby.
Yeah, I usually people at work will ask me about it, and then I'll ask them. They're usually my age or older, so I'll ask them like, "Who's your favorite player as a kid?" And it's usually
Hmm.
like Vince Carter, Allen Iverson, those kind of guys. And I tell them like, dude, there's like amazing stuff that you can buy just to like. I show them eBay, like here's some of the stuff that they have out, and it's like, wow, like this
Yeah.
stuff exists. This is great.
Well, and I love hearing Kiki talk about, who's your favorite actor? Oh,
Yeah,
you like Sylvester Stallone? Here's a card of his.
yeah,
There's cards of everything. I was an old Star Trek kid, and there's Star Trek cards out there. You can get a Jean-Luc Picard autograph card, which I would love to have. But there's cards of everything.
yeah. So what are some of the? I guess I'm gonna limit it to one. What's like one negative part of the hobby that's really needs to be improved?
I don't want to get too negative, but the thing that I really it grinds my gears is shill bidding, and there's really no empirical evidence, um, but I think that we all know it when we see it. And I've had some conversations with folks when I see something that seems a little suspect. I think there's a few people who are repeat offenders of kind of inflating prices, and I have talked to some other collectors about my theory, and I think it could be problematic. Um, if we've all heard of the Vegas Daves and some guys like that, but also if you think about like the reffing scandal with Tim Donaghy, people who do nefarious activities tend to get greedy when there's money involved, and I think that we see some of that in the hobby as a potential, and as the levels of greed kind of keep inching up, it just takes one thing for them to kind of get nabbed with something that's actually a criminal act.
Yeah,
And if that happens, I'm hopefully not going to see that happen. But if that were to happen, that definitely put a stain or a tarnish on collecting. And I think if something like that was to be made public and get picked up by whatever news channel, that could definitely be bad for the hobby. I think it would drive some folks out, kind of sour them. So that's one thing that I worry about. But at the same time, for me, it's not going to sour me. So if I can go and get penny cards because people aren't as interested for cheaper, I'm okay with that.
yeah,
But I definitely don't want to see that because I like seeing more people come to it. I like seeing people be interested. I don't want to go to cocktail parties and have them be like, "Oh, you're into that stuff? I heard about this guy doing this fraudulent activity." I'd
yeah,
rather it be more of the positive conversations that I have.
for sure. Have you been paying attention to the trimming stuff at all?
I have just started paying attention to it. It's definitely troubling. I saw your interview with Justin, and it's incredible the technology, um,
Yeah,
but it's definitely worrisome. Especially me because most of my stuff is raw. I can be a little bit more susceptible to that. I think, uh, but we're seeing it sometimes pop up in stuff that's been slabbed. So it's not just the raw stuff by any means.
yeah. So what else is on your mind? I was just gonna have you show cards, but if you have
Yeah.
something else,
No, I mean, excited for the Super Bowl.
who are you rooting for?
I'm a Packers fan, and living in New England, everybody around me is a Patriots fan, and I can't stand the Patriots. So, I'm kind of the minority here. My wife is a Patriots fan, so I have to kind of tread lightly
Yeah,
and just tell her, like, yeah, I hope Tom Brady gets another ring. But I'm just excited for a good game, in all honesty. And it kind of sounds cliche, but I really don't like when I watch a Super Bowl and it's a blowout. Um, so that's what I'm hoping for. And a good couple commercials is always nice to see
sure.
too.
Yeah, have some food and drinks and hang out and watch football. It's always good.
Right. Exactly.
All right, so show us some cards. I just want to see
Yeah,
anything and
definitely.
everything.
Okay. Well, so here I got a couple stories. I'll
Okay.
show you cards to go along with it. So when I was young, I was collecting, and my grandparents kind of started that whole thing with me. So as my brothers and I started getting more into collecting, they said, "Okay, well, we'll help you guys out and do what we can." So they would go to yard sales, and they found this old game called Win a Card, probably from the 50s or 60s or 70s, and you basically like bet your cards against other people and spin a spinner, and you could lose all your cards. And I was like, "Well, that sounds stupid to me," but they got the game for us anyway. So as we're inspecting this game and we're looking through this box, we start seeing what looks like cards in there, and they're old cards, and we're like, okay, these are probably like reprint cards that aren't worth anything. They're just kind of props for the game. We'll use those for the game. Well, they weren't reprint cards. They were all legitimate. I've got a few of them still, and so Joe Namath's second year card.
Oh, nice.
Got a couple of those. I'm trying to think what are some of the better ones. So we got a Mickey Mantle from I don't know what year this thing is. I need to get these graded. That's what I really need to do. A couple Hank Aaron's that we pulled. So some kid had all of his prized cards in this game, and his parents or grandparents probably took all the stuff, sold it,
Yeah.
and if that person's watching this, they're probably not too thrilled to see that's what. But they went to somebody who took care of them, and like I had those since I was 10.
Yeah.
And I was always enamored with those cards. Now I didn't want to collect any more vintage because where am I going to buy a pack of vintage stuff like
Right.
that? But now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I should probably get those graded, and I should probably move them on to somebody else who's going to love those.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed them, and I've always thought about taking one of these, one of the Joe Namaths, and getting it into Gary V's hands because he's a big Jets fan.
Oh,
For all those Gary V fans, and it's got the homage back to the cards. So maybe I'll get one of those graded and send it his way.
I love seeing the vintage that I don't see all the time because I feel like vintage I sort of get like flooded with the same cards over and over because there was so little to choose from. So when I see the different stuff, I get excited.
Yeah, and I mean some of the designs were pretty cool. Like this stuff from the '60s. It's just neat seeing the printing and some of the pictures. And there was actually like an antique shop that I used to go to in the summers that would occasionally have some vintage cards, and I would pick up some. They were a nickel here and a nickel there. They were all pretty banged up, but I love seeing some of the old hats. I love the old Pirates hats, and some of those old logos were pretty cool to me. So they weren't worth much, but they're cool. Let's see, what else do I have here? So here's one that you might like. So one of the things that I kind of wish I had done, this is if I could do it all over again, is bought everything I could find in 03, 04.
We all do.
Yeah, exactly. So I bought a few, tops and a few MVP packs, and got a couple of LeBron rookies and D-Wade rookies and all that kind of stuff. I always passed from the finest. But a couple years after his rookie season, SP Game Used from Upper Deck came out. And I was like, hey, this is really cool, and it's a better shot at getting a jersey card. So pulling some Johnny Flynn jersey rookies weren't really wetting my whistle, but I pulled one pack from a blaster from Walmart, and I pulled this bad boy.
What?
Jordan LeBron, yeah. So I held on to that for a while until my brother kind of came begging because he's a Jordan guy. But just pulling that $25 blaster, and
That's
I pulled
great.
this thing, and I was looking at it, and I said that can't be real. Those, you kind of do a double take, but and that's the thing for me is pulling stuff out of a pack. You could go and buy this for probably 80, 90, $100, but pulling it out of a pack is way more exhilarating for me.
Yep.
And obviously if you spend $20 on a pack and get $100 card, it's even better. So.
Do you see any parallels between Hardaway and LeBron? Where do you stand on LeBron? Do you like his stuff?
His cards, I like the value proposition. I'm one of those that I think each generation has one guy that's going to stand the test of time. And sometimes you have like a 1B guy. So, Jordan's definitely the guy for the 90s. And then it's kind of everybody else. And there's tiers under there. And I think Kobe is kind of like that 1B guy that, if there's another guy you're going to collect that's going to stand the test of time, it would be Kobe. I think LeBron is 100% that guy for this generation. And the question to me is, who's going to be that 1B? Is it Durant? Is it Steph? So I really like LeBron's value prop if you're looking at value. But for me, his cards don't really excite me too much. I love his Topps rookie that I have. I want to get that puppy graded. But I also love it because it's the draft day picture, and I love draft day pictures.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I just do. But yeah, I don't really get jazzed up to get his stuff. Whenever I pull it, I definitely keep it. That's for sure.
No, we can't be right on everything, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes we're just it's okay.
Yeah,
no, it's fine.
Every once in a while.
I always feel like there's this parallel between Hardaway and LeBron, and every time that LeBron posts on Instagram or something about Hardaway, he's done it a couple times. I'm like, yes, these guys should like be friends. These are both awesome.
Yeah, and I think that there is potential with like the shoe interest. I mentioned it. I'm kind of a sneakerhead. I have a few pairs that I love. I just posted a picture of the Concords I just picked up, but I love penny shoes growing up. And I think that LeBron's shoes have kind of captivated some of the kids like the penny shoes did back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be interesting to see how those shoes kind of get a cult following that maybe there's some retros that come out in 20 years that kids love.
For sure. What else you got?
Let's see. What else? Oh, so there's an insert set that I love. So I don't really like redemption cards. I'll start with that. I love pulling the card out of the pack and having the card in my hand. Yeah. But there was one redemption set that caught my imagination for some reason. It was a 99 2000 hoops. And those packs were dirt cheap. I could get them pretty much anywhere. And they had these little booklets that they said, hey, do you want to make your own card? I said, of course I want to make my own card. Who doesn't? How do I do this? So they had in there, you had an opportunity to pick from 3 fronts and 3 backs. And you would pick your first, and then you would pick your second selection. You'd send it in with a money order for, I think, like $10 at the time.
I know what this is.
Yeah. So you get the card back, and if you're lucky, they still have your first option for the front and back. If you're not, maybe you get the second, and then sometimes they don't have either of those two, and then you just get a random whatever they have left. So I have a couple that I've had, from since 1999. I got a Kobe here, and I got an Iverson. And these are both. This Iverson's in the original packaging. I never took it out after I got this from Fleer Skybox. I still have the packaging slip actually in a different case. And it was just so cool to me that I could pick what I wanted on the front. And I could pick what I wanted on the back. There's only 250 of each combination, but some of those players, they didn't get all those redeemed. So I know I had a Keith Van Horn for years and years that I had redeemed, and a lot of people didn't redeem Keith Van Horn, coincidentally. I mean, I don't know why. But, I was able to hook up with Kyle, who is a super collector of KVH, and he was surprised, to say the least, that I had that of Keith, and I was happy to get it to him. He gave me a strong offer that I never even thought would have been possible to sell that card, let alone for more than $1 or $2.
So you get to pick the player as well, right?
No, so each booklet, they had 9 players, and each booklet was for a specific player. Gotcha. So if you pulled the KG or the Vince or whoever, that was the player. So that's why a lot of them didn't get redeemed with certain players, because if I pulled a Paul Pierce and I don't care for Paul Pierce, I'm just not going to redeem that. I'm going to wait till I pull the Vince Carter. Yeah. I want to redeem that one.
That makes sense. So there's there's some super rare stuff, I'm guessing, within that, like combinations of guys that didn't get redeemed.
Yeah, exactly. So Vince Carter, you can probably go on eBay right now. You can get one for $20-$30 because everybody redeemed Vince Carter back in '99.
Yeah,
and he was the guy. Kobe stuff is relatively common, but you've got the guys like Keith Van Horn that you just can't find. Iverson's relatively hard to find. Paul Pierce is kind of hard to find, and I think Jason Williams is pretty hard too. But I know that there are a couple guys who are trying to collect the entire set. They want all 9 combinations of each player.
Yeah,
and that's a tall task for sure. I'm always keeping my eye out for those because I just love them. But if I find one that's a combination that somebody else doesn't have, I'm more than happy to trade it for a different player that they have duplicates of.
Nice. That's a unique set. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a really fun set. Let's see, what else do I have? So I'm not a huge fan of in-person autos either. I think that they're cool, but I don't think they're terribly valuable. But I do have a few that I kind of have some fun stories behind. So this one here of Matt Bonner when he was with Florida. So Matt Bonner, I grew up in New Hampshire, and Matt Bonner's from New Hampshire. And the trainer that I worked with for basketball happened to be the same trainer that he worked with on the off seasons. So when he'd come back to New Hampshire, he'd do some camps and stuff like that, and I'd have the opportunity to work out with him, kind of not a private workout, but it'd be me, my brother, and one other friend that would work out with Matt and his brother and his sister. So I got to know Matt pretty well over the years, and he probably wouldn't recognize me now because I'm, like 100 pounds heavier and a little bit older, not as athletic. But learning what I was able to learn from an NBA player, and also it gave me an appreciation for the level of athleticism for professional athletes. Because Matt Bonner, for those that remember when he played for the Spurs, he looked like he was standing in quicksand out on the court. He just looked like this tall, big, goofy guy that just jacked up threes. But when you play with him, it's a different level of athleticism. Like, he was more athletic than anybody. I played at a pretty high level in high school. I played at AAU Division I players. He was more athletic than anybody I had ever played with or against by a long margin.
Yeah.
And seeing how unathletic he looks compared to NBA players, you get some guys like Gerald Green. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah.
It's unbelievable, the athleticism of these guys. So when people say, "Yeah, I could have made it to the league," I look at them sometimes. I'm like, no, you couldn't. Just appreciate it.
Yeah, you really don't understand until you are on the same court as those guys and they're just like running circles around you.
Yeah, and playing in AAU, I got dunked on by guys. I was never a dunker. I was 6 foot tall on a good day. And athletic for a white kid from New Hampshire. But getting dunked on, these kids thought they were big stuff, and I'm like, no, you're still not. You're still not Bonner. So
Yeah. Anything else?
I have tons of stuff. So I could show cards all day. I mean, this is what we do, right? So one of the things that I enjoyed doing when I was younger also is seeing the new sets that came out and almost like prospecting the sets, seeing what I thought might be cool, and getting the stuff before it kind of took off in value. So one of the things that I was interested in early on was serial number cards. I love serial number cards. Low serial number cards, the better. And I was curious about engineered patches. I wasn't sure what exactly they were, but I was curious enough to want to pick a couple up. So I found this set that's all that they had: serial numbered, engineered patches of the nameplate, and some of them were autographed. And I said to my dad, I said, "These look really cool. I want to pick a couple up." And he said, "All right, pick a player, and we'll get one." And there were a number of players that I could get on eBay. So I picked one guy, probably not the best guy to pick, but super cool card. Hopefully you can pick it all up on camera.
Oh, cool.
So it's a booklet of Boozer. One of the patches is autographed, and this is numbered to 19.
Nice.
So hopefully you can get that in. So I'm a Duke fan, so I picked up Boozer. Now, in hindsight, I could have picked up Boozer. I could have picked up Aaron Davis. I could have picked up Dominique Wilkins, or I could have picked up Larry Bird. So Boozer wasn't the greatest player out of those guys, but super cool card. I love having that. And it's just interesting, seeing. I can't figure out a good way to actually protect that card,
Yeah.
and I can't imagine ever getting that slab. But it's super cool card, and just the idea to do that by Topps was very creative.
Yeah. Unique.
Because they're always trying to push that envelope.
Yep.
And then kind of along the same lines of that, so this is one that was actually pulled, but not an engineered. So this is a Letterman. So this is a game jersey of Corey Maggette, and this was again from the UD Game Used. So I was buying a bunch of this stuff, and I got a buddy kind of hooked on it, and he was like, "Yeah, let's buy some." So we got a couple packs, and we got the 2 packs, and the card owner was like, "Here, you guys pick it." So I picked the pack first and opened it up and got, I have no idea, probably Paul Gasol or Andrew Bynum, and he pulled that Corey Maggette. And I was like, dude, I want that. And he knows I'm a Duke fan, and I loved Corey Maggette when he was with the Clippers. And he's a big Damon Stoudemire fan, so I had some Damon Stoudemire numbered card. And I was like, here, I'll just trade it for you right now. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then looking at it afterwards, this thing's numbered to 8 because they only made one patch for each letter in everybody's name. So,
Yeah.
If you get a low a small name, then it's even lower than that. So I think I definitely made out in that deal. But
Nice.
it's Corey Maggette, so I don't know if there's a Corey Maggette fan out there that's collecting this stuff. Hit me up and I'll get that in your hands for sure.
Cool, man. All right. Well, if you don't mind, we'll wrap it up. And
Yeah, definitely.
unless you got any other burning things that you need to get out.
If anybody has any more of these build your own cards, hit me up.
Sweet.
Love to get some more of those.
All right.
But
Well,
yeah, thanks. This has
I
been
will.
great.
I'll post a link to your channel, and
Awesome.
we'll get some fans over to watch your content. And I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with me today.
Yeah, definitely. Next time we're both at Nationals, let's bust some packs of 90s stuff.
I go to every Nationals from now on.
All right. Well, I'll see you in 2020 then.
All right. I'll see you then, man.
All right. Sounds good.